Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, 5 Best Practices for Renegotiating Supplier Contracts, brought to you by IOFM and sponsored by PRGX. I do have a few housekeeping notes to go over before we officially get started. If you need any technical assistance, we first recommend you refreshing your browser. That usually solves most problems on this platform, but if you continue to have any issues, please use the Q&A box and I will respond right away. There will be no call-in number for today's session. To connect, you just need to have access to either a computer, tablet, or cell phone for your audio. And everyone has been muted today. For your convenience, everything in the webinar console is fully customizable, so you can move things around, resize the windows, and even turn on captions for this event. At the bottom of your console, you'll find our resources box. This is where you can download the slides from today's webinar. Also, be prepared to answer 4 polling questions during the webinar. The polls will appear in the slides window during the presentation. Please choose from the multiple choice answers and hit submit. We would love to have your participation and insight today. You can ask questions at any time using the Q&A box, and we'll leave time at the end of the webinar to run a Q&A with our speakers. If for some reason we're not able to get to your question, we'll make sure to follow up via email in the next few business days. And finally, this webinar will be recorded and you'll receive a thank you email from IOFM with the on-demand materials within 2 business days. And with that out of the way, I would like to introduce our speakers for today. First up, we have Mark Rousseau. Over the past 30 years, Mark has established himself as a thought leader on accounts payable, accounts receivable, payments, and document automation. A popular speaker at industry conferences and on webinars and podcasts, Rousseau advises prominent end users and solutions and services providers on how to use automation to improve document and payments-driven business processes. Rousseau has chaired numerous educational conferences and has served on several industry committees and boards. He resides in Center City, Philadelphia with his wife and 3 sons. On our webinar today, we also have Jim Albrecht. He, over at PRGX, leads the contract compliance business, guiding a diverse global team across 5 continents to conduct world-class contract compliance reviews. With a career starting in finance within light manufacturing and equipment rental industries. From there, he has carved a significant niche in recovery audit, dedicating over 15 years to contract compliance. His extensive experience spans various sectors, including retail, pharma, telecoms, automotive, and technology, serving clients worldwide. And at this time, I would like to welcome our speakers and hand the webinar off to Mark and Jim.
Hey, thank you so much, Laura, and thank you all for joining us today. Let's dive right in with a poll question to set the table for today's conversation. The poll question is now displayed on your screen. We want to know, does your organization have a well-established process for achieving best-in-class supplier contract compliance and performance? Does your organization have a well-established process for achieving best-in-class supplier contract compliance and performance? A couple modifiers in that phrase that I want you to be mindful of, people. Absolutely. Well, you have a roadmap and you're seeing some improvement. It's a challenge and we have a way to go, or you don't even know where to start. Take a moment to respond to the poll question now displayed on your screen, and we'll discuss the results in just a moment. You know, Jim, in uncertain economic times like these, we know that organizations pay closer attention to their spend management. Are you seeing more organizations that are focusing on contract compliance and performance as a result of some of the economic uncertainty that we're encountering these days?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not sure exactly what the cause is, but we're seeing the results for sure. And that is that, contract compliance, the industry started maybe about 20 years ago, and we were the pioneers in that. but man, it has grown so much in the last 5 to 7 years. It's really incredible. There's just more understanding of what contract compliance is and what it can accomplish. And I think also people are beginning to understand that there's a lot of value, not just from looking back at time and identifying opportunities for historical recoveries and getting overcharges back, but also really understanding where can we go from here? How can we improve things going forward? How can we, how do we identify what the issues are and then make I guess another roadmap for fixing those things going forward so that those kind of errors go away. So yeah, we're definitely seeing a lot of activity in that area.
Jim, we know that organizations tend to get lax about things like spend management and contract compliance when economic times are good. It's been a while since we've had a true recession in this country. I'm obviously putting aside the economic tumult of the pandemic. Sure. How well prepared do you think most finance departments and organizations are from a systems and process standpoint to manage things like contract compliance if things start to get bumpy with the economy?
Yeah, I'd say that it's certainly better than it used to be. There's been a lot more digitization of documentation and things that we didn't see in the past. Previously there'd be a lot more paper and need to go and meet with people to go over support documentation and so forth. And really during the pandemic, it really forced everybody to be more digital and to be able to handle things more electronically. And so since then, we've been really be able to operate more in a digital environment, and people are a lot more prepared for this. So I'd say, they are prepared from a technology standpoint, but I don't know that everybody's necessarily is motivated because of the economic conditions being a little bit more, as they get more unknown in the future. I don't know if they're quite prepared for all of that, but certainly I think the technology is there to support it.
You've been at this a while, Jim. I've got to ask, what is the most common thing you see organizations do from a contract compliance standpoint that makes you cringe?
It makes me cringe. Probably it gets down to something very basic, and that's the right to audit clause. Not having the real teeth in that kind of in your agreement that you really should have. So many times companies consider the audit clause as something that is sort of a throw-in and also something that can be thrown away. And so when a savvy customer or a savvy supplier is what I meant, a savvy supplier says, hey, can we adjust this audit clause to be this or that? They feel like, hey, that's not going to cost me anything, so I'll go ahead and with those modifications, not realizing or understanding what that impact might be in the future, where maybe there's limitation on the scope of what can be relooked at, who can look at it, what types of transactions they're willing to support and not support in terms of documentation. So there's a lot of things that can be nuanced in that audit clause that a savvy supplier can really make some adjustments to that maybe the buyer isn't necessarily understanding. So that's really important, and it does make me cringe.
I can imagine. We asked you, does your organization have a well-established process for achieving best-in-class supplier contract compliance and performance? Well, 1/4 of you are feeling pretty good about the way you're doing things these days. You're probably here to complete that last mile. You believe you absolutely have that process in place that you need for supplier contract compliance and performance. The rest of you, well, you've got some work to do. 45% of you say you've got a roadmap and you're seeing some improvement. Another 1/4 of you say it's a challenge and you have a way to go. And 7% of you, well, you don't even know the right questions to ask. I love spoilers, Jim, especially when they come to Marvel movies. So what would be the single biggest piece of advice you'd give to the 7% of people who say they don't even know the right questions to ask?
Well, at the risk of sounding self-serving, we can help you with that, right? We can certainly go through and just identify where are the places to start. What are the main issues to focus attention on, just to get some initial wins that under your belt, so that you can really sell it within the organization? Because if you go to the organization and say, and you look at your purchasing team and you say, who all wants to have their suppliers audited? Not many people are going to raise their hands, right? I mean, if they just assume it's going to be a difficult process, when really it really should be turned around like that and viewed more as, hey, I can be part of the solution here. So if there's some issues, I want to know what they are so I can be the person that fixed that. And so we can really help with that. So I think, just being bold enough to get off the, get started with it, I think is really important. And you can see that, absolutely at 25%, if we had done this poll 5 years ago, I bet it would be about 15%, because it's really something that's been growing a lot over the last few years. And so those of you that aren't quite sure what questions to ask, I think this webinar is going to really help you start to get some ideas, and certainly we'd be happy to talk to you in the future.
Ensuring strong contract compliance and performance is good policy regardless of the economic environment. And to tell us some best practices for doing just that, well, I'm going to hand it off to Jim.
Okay, well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. And welcome, everybody. We'll begin today by considering the current environment, starting with complexity and risk. The landscape of procurement and contract compliance is inherently complex, and this complexity often introduces significant risks. These risks can directly impact profits if not managed properly. While contracts are designed to help businesses control risks and shield from price fluctuations, it doesn't always happen that way due to the intricate nature of these agreements. One of the key challenges companies face is ensuring contracts are adhered to as intended. Even with well-written agreements and the best of intentions by both parties, different interpretations or a lack of strict adherence can prevent you from reaping the full benefits. This often leads to hidden inefficiencies and missed opportunities that are more common than one might think. To truly maximize the value of contracts, ensuring full compliance is essential. This isn't a task that can be handled casually. It requires years of experience and a robust data-driven approach. By leveraging data and insights, you can better monitor and enforce compliance, ultimately securing the benefits you've spent so much time and effort negotiating. Contract renegotiation presents a unique opportunity to improve compliance and extract more value from supplier relationships. Through these renegotiations, you can address any shortcomings in current agreements and embed compliance measures directly into the invoicing processes, setting the stage for better, healthier future interactions. Effective contract management goes beyond just compliance. It can optimize the procurement and accounts payable processes, help recover losses from non-compliance, and strengthen relationships with vendors. These improvements can lead to more efficient and a beneficial long-term partnership, driving overall business success. So in summary, understanding and addressing the complexities and risks in procurement and contract compliance is really crucial. By focusing on compliance and leveraging opportunities during contract renegotiations, you can secure better outcomes and foster strong, lasting vendor partnerships. So the situation is, a robust contract compliance really will help you to respond to mistakes that occurred in the past that cost you value, and also drives you towards improved performance where you get the value you expect out of your contracts. Without a contract compliance health checkup, there's no way to know where you are headed. With a contract compliance health checkup, you'll see where you've been without the changes. So with the checkup, you'll understand where you're headed if you hadn't done that. So that's the point, is that if you look back 3 years in time, you're going to see where you've been. If you make no changes, that's likely where you're going to be in the next 3 years. But with this visibility, what's really important is you can course correct and head in the right direction. And the reality is, contract compliance doesn't mean one side is intentionally violating terms. When a company grows and gets more complex, mistakes and overcharges become a lot more likely. It could be ad hoc sourcing, it could be poorly defined pay bands, or maybe just the complexity of a global agreement. And that's just to name a few. They all can lead to unexpected problems. And what's the benefit of getting it right? Addressing these issues proactively is essential for maintaining control over expenditures, improving visibility into contracts, driving on-contract spend, ensuring supplier compliance, and reducing savings leakage These are all critical benefits of an effective overall contract compliance strategy. The mechanisms to achieve this include a library of standardized contract language, a centralized repository of approved contract templates, and systems that make contract search, discovery, and review easy to use. These measures collectively help manage contracts more efficiently and protect your financial interests. The right time to add these mechanisms and improve your contract standardization is during contract renegotiation. It's the opportunity for a reset. And getting it right is crucial. Poor contract compliance has a tangible impact on the bottom line. And according to Ardent Partners, non-compliant spend with suppliers can add an extra cost of 12 to 18% for the average enterprise. That's pretty significant when you think about that. So in essence, while growth and complexity in managing supplier contracts present challenges, addressing these issues through improved management and compliance is imperative and can significantly reduce costs and protect the bottom line. And this can start with contract renegotiation. So now we'll get into the 5 best practices for renegotiating supplier contracts. Number 1, getting the language right. Crafting a contract's language and communicating the key terms to all stakeholders involved can reduce supplier billing errors caused by confusing or unclear wording. One of the most effective ways to reduce supplier billing errors is by ensuring that contract language is clear and consistent. When the terms are well defined, there's less room for confusion, which helps in reducing errors and ensuring accurate billings and payments. Ambiguity in contract terms can lead to significant issues for sure, such as misaligned expectations and resulting errors. For example, unclear wording related to the definition of cost can cause significant discrepancies and result in overpayments. When the value to be billed is determined by what cost is determined to be, it is critical both sides understand and agree on what is intended to be included and excluded from cost. Using straightforward language helps prevent these problems by eliminating opportunities for misinterpretation. It is also crucial to include a comprehensive audit rights clause in your contracts, as I mentioned earlier. The clause would cover access to relevant financial information and data, ensuring transparency and accountability from your suppliers. The time period covered by this right is also important, so there is the opportunity for proper oversight. Suppliers need to understand payment of an invoice is simply that, a payment, and does not waive the right to audit. Lastly, it's essential to clearly define the activities that suppliers are expected to undertake. This helps to minimize any non-compliant practices such as subcontracting by ensuring that both parties understand what is and what is not included in the contract. Another area we see frequently is related to SLAs with financial penalties for non-compliance. If there's no enforcement of the SLAs or data is not available to measure the SLAs, they become irrelevant. Be sure all SLAs can be tracked and are monitored appropriately. So in conclusion, by getting the language right in your contracts, you can make effective fixes that improve existing agreements and minimize future issues. Clear and consistent terms, comprehensive audit rights, and well-defined supplier activities, along with regular communication, are all key to achieving this. Number 2, make sure both parties understand the commercial terms. Contracts need to capture the intent of the parties. That means ensuring that the primary mechanics of the contract are clear and consistent, including markups, pass-through costs, expected margin, KPIs, SLAs, etc. It's crucial that contracts capture the intent of both parties by making the primary mechanics clear and consistent. This includes definition of details such as application of markups, handling of pass-through costs, calculation of expected margins, and tracking of KPIs and SLAs. When these elements are well defined, both parties have a clear understanding of their financial obligations and expectations, resulting in a healthier partnership. Additionally, contracts should detail the handling of any markups, rebates, volume discounts, and effective dates for changes. By clearly explaining these financial incentives, both parties are assured and aware of the potential benefits and can manage their financial planning more effectively. A good way to clarify intent is with the use of examples. Crafting the language can be a tricky process, and clarifying how a provision is to be handled with an example can prove to be very helpful. Just be careful. If the terms are adjusted, that the example is as well. We've found situations where the provision and the associated example were at odds due to not being updated in the redlining process. That can be really a problem. But I think using examples is really a good way to help people actually execute against the contract and understand the intent. And for compliance and auditing purposes, it's important to address data retention requirements in the contract. Specifying how long data must be retained and in what format helps ensure that both parties can meet regulatory requirements and facilitate transparent audits. So ensuring that both parties understand and acknowledge the commercial terms of a contract is vital for a successful partnership. Clear definitions of financial mechanics, proper handling of markups, rebates, and discounts, and well-defined data retention requirements help create a transparent and effective agreement. Number 3, ensure accountability and responsibility. Using renegotiation to improve supplier relationships also means making sure both sides in the contract understand their commitments and obligations. One of the key elements in ensuring accountability is maintaining control over the contract document. As the purchasing organization, you own the contract and should ensure that any variations are documented and captured accurately. This helps in maintaining a clear record of any changes made and is also a good way of retaining knowledge of intent for future reference. It's also essential to store copies of the contract and any related documents in a centralized and secure environment. This includes RFP response documents, scopes of work, agreed variations, contract addendums, really any supporting documentation. Secure storage ensures that these important documents are easily accessible and protected. All stakeholders, both within your organization and with the vendor, need to be aware of the contract's terms and conditions. They should acknowledge their responsibility for compliance with the contract, ensuring everyone understands their role in maintaining the agreement, including contract expiration and renewal. Ultimately, it is the supplier's responsibility to ensure they prepare invoices in line with the contract. They should be reminded so they are fully aware of this expectation and understand that adherence to the contract terms is crucial for a successful partnership, and that all paid invoices are subject to audit. So ensuring accountability and responsibility on both sides of the contract is crucial. By maintaining control, securely storing documents in a central repository, raising stakeholder awareness, and ensuring supplier compliance results in a more transparent and accountable contract relationship. Number 4, embed strong governance in the contract and the relationship. When a strategic supplier provides services or materials that are critical to your business, it is best to undertake regular reviews to ensure the contract and relationship are operating as expected from both sides. The review should highlight any issues and point to service level agreements and key performance indicators to evaluate supplier performance. For important suppliers who provide critical services or materials, regular QBR type reviews are essential to ensure the contract and the relationship are functioning as intended. These reviews can help to identify early on any issues or challenges and allow for the parties to jointly agree on timely interventions and course corrections. Incorporating service level agreements and key performance indicators into the contract is a vital component to contractual governance. Establishing these metrics helps to provide clear benchmarks for performance and governance. Be sure the metrics can be measured easily and the formulas behind the measurement are clearly understood and agreed. I don't know how many times we've run into this type of situation where there are SLAs or KPIs in an agreement, and yet they're not enforced because nobody understands how to calculate them. So it's really important that that is understood early on in the life cycle of the agreement. It's important to surface and openly discuss any gaps between the contract wording and its real-world application. Addressing these discrepancies ensures the contract is effectively guiding the relationship and operations. Both parties should regularly discuss whether the expected benefits considered in the RFP process and outlined in the contract are actually being realized. This ongoing dialogue ensures the supplier partnership is delivering the value anticipated. This provides an opportunity to make any adjustments if necessary. A strong governance framework should include clauses for risk oversight, mitigation, and control. These should outline the responsibilities and costs associated with correcting any errors, placing the onus on the supplier to address the issues promptly and report back on what was actioned and the resulting impact. So embedding strong governance in the contract and the supplier relationship is key to ensuring both parties meet their obligations and achieve the intended benefits envisioned with the RFP. Regular reviews, clear performance metrics, open discussions on the gaps, and robust risk mitigation clauses are all essential components of this governance framework. So I did see that we've got a question. If it's okay, Mark, I'm going to try to address the question right away. I like to do things timely. How long to contract renewal should you start discussion of renewals? I think that depends on the situation, but normally what we see is within starting about 6 months prior to the expiration is when that should begin. It depends, I suppose, also on if there's going to be an RFP for the renewal or not, or if it's just going to be a straight up renewal, then you might need a little less time. But I think it's important that the issues that have been identified within the contract and within, not just within the contract, but within operating underneath the terms of the contract, that those issues are brought forward and really addressed in that process. Because the last thing you want is for other mitigating things to happen from the supplier side, where maybe they're trying to figure out how can they bill for certain things that aren't in the contract because it doesn't say they can't, right? So you want to make sure that you anticipate all of those things and make sure you're including those in the contract. So however complex the agreement is, you probably need a little bit more time. If it's more complex, if it's less complex, probably a little less time. But I'd say anywhere from 3 to 6 months is probably a good benchmark. Then moving on to number 5. Structure the supplier relationship correctly. Strategic and sensitive supplier relationships require investment, including regular communication, reviews, and reconciliations on a predictable schedule during the contract lifecycle. For strategic and sensitive supplier relationships, it's crucial to invest in a planned cycle of reviews and reconciliations. By scheduling these interactions predictably throughout the contract lifecycle, you can ensure that both parties are aligned and there is an opportunity to raise any issues so they can be addressed promptly. While operations or the business may own the relationship, procurement often owns the contract. It's essential to involve all stakeholders in renegotiations to ensure that all perspectives are considered and the contract meets operational needs. Bringing all parties into the discussion early results in a more aligned approach to working with the supplier, and the intent of any changes is more fully understood. Even with aggressive contract negotiations, remember, suppliers need to make a profit. An unbalanced contract can lead to suppliers seeking hidden charges or exploiting ambiguous language to extend their margins, which is what I was just referring to. Ensuring a fair balance in profitability helps maintain a healthy and transparent relationship. When establishing the supplier relationship, this is an opportune time to set expectation of a contract compliance health checkup. By making the supplier aware that this is a normal and regular planned activity, they can be better prepared and actually not surprised when it occurs, which is really important. So structuring supplier relationships correctly requires planned investment in regular communication, involving all relevant stakeholders in renegotiations, balancing the contract to ensure fair profitability for suppliers, and setting the expectation of exercising the right to audit. These steps help build a strong, effective partnership that benefits both parties. So contracts are the tie that binds organizations to their supply chains. They should deliver the value procurement teams negotiated at the outset and the specific terms agreed by the parties while delivering what is needed by operations. But without visibility and control, businesses expose themselves to savings leakage and overcharges. For companies looking to increase savings, wherever they can, implementing a contract compliance program is critical to success. Contract renegotiation offers a perfect opportunity to reset the process. By following these 5 best practices, organizations can preserve the value procurement teams have worked so hard to negotiate and secure. And then we're off to the next question, Mark.
Yeah, indeed it does. That brings us to our next poll question, which is now displayed on your screen. We want to know, is your organization using artificial intelligence and machine learning to strengthen supplier performance and relationships? Is your organization using artificial intelligence and machine learning to strengthen supplier performance and relationships? Yes, you are effectively leveraging AI tools. We rely on people over technology, or I don't know how much automation my organization is using. Take a moment to respond to the poll question now displayed on your screen, and we'll discuss the results in just a moment. We know, Jim, that few technologies have generated as much excitement and as much fear as artificial intelligence in the finance community. You've been around finance a long time. Talk to me about just how excited you are about the potential of AI and machine learning and some of these similar technologies.
It's incredible. It's really incredible. And I was thinking, the question should be, what was it this morning and what is it this afternoon? Because things are changing so fast, right? We may have not been effectively leveraging AI tools when I came in Monday morning, but man, it's Tuesday afternoon now. Now we are. It's really moving quickly. And I'd say in terms of our space, there's so much opportunity for further development and mining of information. So when you think about contract repositories and all the wealth of information that's in there, it's really difficult to pull that information out. But with AI, you're able to query those that kind of set of data and really understand, if you identify, if we're going through a contract compliance program, for example, and we identify there's a problematic provision in one of your contracts, say, this is really exposing your organization to a lot of leakage. Well, now what we can do is we can gather all your contracts and say, where else is there this language or similar language to this in other contracts that maybe we're not looking at? So it's really amazing how, and this is just the beginning, right? 6 months from now, a year from now, I can just imagine how much we're going to be able to do. It's definitely changing a lot. And I would just encourage everyone, if you're not really using like ChatGPT or using Copilot or something like that, you really just try it out. Even personally, I think it's a good thing to just start working into your everyday online experience, right? Where you maybe would have Googled something in the past. Just ask a question and see how it responds, and start to get familiar with it, because that is the wave of the future.
Yeah, and if you need any help, just go to your kids. They're already using it to do their homework. At least mine are. Jim, how much adoption are we seeing of AI and machine learning as it pertains to contract compliance? Are we still in the nascent stages, or is this starting to become more broadly adopted already?
I would say that it's becoming more broadly adopted, but I'd say there's so much room for growth beyond where we are. So, I think everybody understands that. Just conceptually, people understand the value that it will bring to this type of these types of reviews. But then now actually executing on that and seeing the value from it, I think that's where we are, where we have the opportunity to grow. So I gave you an example before of a provision that might be problematic. Well, that's just like a simple early stage type kind of review or query. I'm sure there's many other things that we can do, like coming up with the best in class clause for an audit clause, or best in class clause for contingent labor or something like that. Really could change a lot of contracting processes that people follow.
Jim, what's the biggest misperception about AI as it pertains to finance in general, and maybe in contract compliance in particular?
The biggest misconception, boy, I don't know. I'm not sure how to answer that. I would just say that people, I think some people are very intimidated by it, and so they don't necessarily want to get involved, and they think in terms of, let's push that off as long as we can, because I don't really want to learn about it. And others are so far in front that they're really like the trailblazers in this area. So I think you just want to make sure that you're doing things in in a controlled environment. You've got things to consider in terms of confidentiality. So you don't want like your supplier contracts out on the web, for example. That's something that you want to keep confidential. So any kind of searching or AI type tools that you have, you want to make sure are within your four walls and within your network and not exposed to the web. So those are the kind of things I think that those are the broad range of people that I see in terms of addressing AI.
Some great advice there. We asked you, is your organization using AI and machine learning to strengthen supplier performance and relationships? It looks like you've got a little bit of work to do in this area, Jim. 44% of you admit that you're relying on people over technology. 41% of you say you're not so sure what your organization is doing with technologies such as AI and machine learning. And 13% of you, well, you're blazing the trail. You're already using AI for supplier performance and relationships. Talk to me about this. Do these results surprise you, Jim?
I guess they don't surprise me. I was just thinking, what would these numbers have been 6 months ago? I know on the previous one I said 5 or 7 years ago, but in this case, what would it have been 3 to 6 months ago? I think it would have been less than 10%. It's just growing
Peanuts,
so
right?
phenomenally
Yeah.
quickly. Right? It's really amazing when you think about ChatGPT was introduced, I think it was October of 2022. So here we are, like 18 months since then or so, 20 months, and how far it's already gone and really embedded itself into a lot of what people do. So if you're not on board with that, I suggest you get on board with it as quickly as possible. And again, using it in personal querying, like, having a plan a trip for you or what to make for dinner or something like that, something very simple, and you'll start to get a feel for how it works. Anyway, let's move on then to
Absolutely. The fact is that whether it's...
Go ahead. What were you going to say, Mark?
No, I was going to say technology is key to ensuring contract. I was going to say technology is key for contract compliance and performance, and that's what we're going to talk about next.
Yeah, exactly. So really, to achieve best-in-class contract compliance, we strongly believe you need expertise, coupled with the right technology to drive performance. And PRGX has the most experienced contract compliance team in the business. I'm very proud to say, actually, I'm very proud of my team. In addition, we are using a machine learning model that powers our team to perform even better. And we are leveraging the power of AI to further improve quality and efficiency of contract compliance reviews. Combining our team of experts with the power of today's latest technology is the best way to get the most from a contract compliance program. Your program for contract compliance should be using today's powerful technology, as I mentioned, and to help capture and evaluate key sections of your contracts. For PRGX, our machine learning model, which we call Contract Insights, is designed to provide a high-quality review to make sure nothing is missed by the human eye. Using technology saves time and helps prioritize the review. Some of the areas where we believe PRGX has a competitive AI advantage include contract header terms. So capturing key terms like contract title, parties to the contract, and effectivity dates are really important. It's also critical to confirm the identity of the vendor in your master file and when the contract is actually active. Contract documents interact with a secure generative AI tool to facilitate queries and quickly find relevant sections. High impact clauses. To properly assess contracts, it's important to extract the billing types and clauses with the highest inherent risk for testing purposes. Contract Insights categorizes clauses by spend types such as cost-based charges, labor rates, or special equipment charges. And we're continually improving by enhancing and expanding our training data to further enrich our capabilities. And risk scoring. It's important to prioritize contract compliance reviews, as not all contracts will lead to discrepancies. We're training Contract Insights to produce a predictive risk score to flag contracts with the greatest inherent risk. Coupling the technology with our experienced audit teams will maximize potential and produce guidance on what needs to be improved, and probably more importantly, how to improve it. The advantages realized from using Contract Insights technology include the following. Rapid document labeling with artificial intelligence. So AI-assisted identification of header terms significantly speeds up the process of labeling contract metadata. making it faster and more efficient to manage large volumes of contracts, such as downloads of complete contract repositories. Machine learning automatically identifies and highlights key contract provisions within document previews, ensuring key terms are captured properly during reviews. With OCR text extraction, these capabilities convert unstructured data into structured data, enabling discovery and search capabilities across all types of data seamlessly. We are able to prioritize based on potential using contract risk scoring. This allows for focusing in on the areas with the most inherent risk for both recovery opportunities and to identify contract sections needing improvement. Navigating through documentation is aided by automated searching and tagging to improve the organization and scoring of contracts, making it easier to find relevant information quickly and efficiently. And as Contract Insights is utilized, it continues to improve, resulting in increasingly accurate contract management and compliance processes. This improves both effectiveness and quality of our outputs. So leveraging AI and ML in contract compliance and contract renegotiation offers numerous contract management benefits, from speeding up discovery to improving contract consistency and accuracy over time. These technologies enhance the ability to manage contracts effectively and ensure compliance, ultimately driving better outcomes for the organization. And then I've got just a quick case study, and I think we've got time for that. Just a quick case study on contract labor. So this is a contract labor provider. In this scenario, the review was focused on a global IT technical services labor provider, which used an MSP, which is also a managed service provider. That's what that stands for. The group included 9 providers within a 3-year spend of about $20 to $150 million. There certainly is complexity here with it being a global contract and all the intricacies of local rules and regulations, not to mention FX currency conversions. The breakdowns identified included labor rates charged not matching the rate card, rates used on invoices that did not apply to the situation, workers who were outside the scope of the rate card, workers with multiple labor classes, time billed for workers which was greater than the time paid to those workers, misapplication of overtime and PTO rates, incorrectly computing discounts and rebates. I mean, all kinds of different things. In addition, we found the mix of onshore versus offshore team members was inconsistent with the mix expectation referenced in the SOW. Certainly, all of these root causes were eye-opening for our client. There was an assumption these types of errors just could not occur in an MSP relationship with a VMS system, but there were certainly some system limitations. In addition, there was maverick spend that was open to interpretation. The historical cash recaptured from this case study was about $2.7 million, and the go-forward savings was over $10 million over the course of the ongoing life of the contract. So really, really successful. Again, looking back in time, there's a certain amount of historical recoveries, but really the real value is fixing it going forward. And that $10 million is over the next 3 years, the life of the contract. But then, hey, you've got the next contract, right? And now you know what to include in that contract, so those savings can continue on.
Yeah, real snowball effect.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, you want to find out more about contract compliance and performance, audit recovery, and some of the other types of topics we've been talking about today. Well, you're invited to attend PRGX Exchange, Shaping Winning Strategies in the AI Era. They're going to take a deep dive over the course of several days, going into topics such as these. You don't have to be a PRGX customer to attend. You just have to reach out to PRGX to find out more information. I've been lucky enough to attend PRGX Exchange in the past, and I know you'll find it to be a wealth of information. And that brings us to the Q&A portion of this webinar. If you haven't already submitted your question for Jim, or if you've thought of another question for Jim, go ahead, use the Q&A tool on your screen to submit your question to me now. We'll answer as many questions as time allows. While you're doing that, we're going to also be displaying a couple of poll questions on your screen that we won't be discussing, but we'll go ahead and collect those results. Our first question up is from Patrick. Patrick wants to know, should you need to include a credit risk assessment in your supplier onboarding process? And if so, what specific factors should you be looking at?
Well, probably it's good to take a look at the financial viability of your suppliers. I mean, I think that should always be a case that you want to make sure that who you're dealing with is somebody that is, going to be with you for the long term, for the term of the contract. So certainly that is important to do. I think that is part of just the RFP process, right? Is to evaluate all the different suppliers and understand, not just what their pricing mechanism is, but depending on what is it they're delivering, maybe even getting into the level of profitability that is expected. And then also taking into account their credit worthiness. I think that probably is the way to go. I hope that answers the question, Mark. Does that address it?
I think so.
Okay.
We have another question. Thomas wants to know, what role should accounts payable play in contract compliance and performance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we see that many times where we have clients that we work with both with an accounts payable audit as well as contract compliance reviews, and so that's a really good question. Really, what we can do is identify at a very high level. We can identify where there might be some problems with certain suppliers. So if we're seeing a lot of credits coming through, where there's adjustments to invoices or where there's returns or price changes, that's an indication that maybe where there's smoke, there's fire. So that's not always the case, but that could be an indicator that there's some issues that need to be looked at. But just more generally speaking, we do like to take a look at the accounts payable spend, and if there's any kind of categorization done to each of the suppliers to get a feel for where is your spend, who are the larger suppliers in each of the different categories, and help to identify who are the best candidates to consider for a contract compliance program.
Allison wants to know, where does the vendor setup generally lie? Where does the vendor setup generally lie? With the AP department or with the procurement department or somewhere else? And if manually sending out setup forms, who's best to do that? The requester, accounts payable, procurement, someone else?
Well, and many times there's a setup process done through a portal. So it could be Ariba or Coupa or something like that, where you set up this vendor that way, where it's sort of a self-serve, where they're having to provide information and so forth there. And so that can be part of it. But I would say I don't have a lot of visibility into who is setting up a supplier in the systems, because they're already set up by the time we're there, and they're very strategic suppliers. But I would guess that it's either a portal situation or it's done through accounts payable.
Eileen wants to know, would you need special programs to use artificial intelligence to check contracts for compliance?
Well, I think it's important, as I mentioned earlier, it's important to consider confidentiality. And so whatever tool that you decide to use, make sure that you're not exposing that information to the web, that it is only being looked at within your environment or within whatever environment you're comfortable with. There's some level of risk, I think, no matter where you do it, right? So I think just consulting with your security and with, maybe even with legal about what you can do with contracts is probably a good place to start. But I think it's probably best to try to maintain that, within your four walls, I think is a good place to get started. And then making sure that you're not just doing this on your own. Let's, make sure that there's others within the organization that are aware of what it is that you're planning and the purpose and how long the contract might be, in this tool for analysis. Maybe something that you put out there for quick analysis, you get the results back and then you retrieve the document. So it's not out there very long. That can reduce the exposure as well, or your risk to external exposure as well.
And that will be our final word. Jim, thanks so much for an excellent
really
presentation.
Good question.
Well,
really
very
good.
This is a very important and very timely topic, clearly. If you want to learn more about contract compliance and performance, I invite you to reach out to Jim and the team at PRGX. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Laura. Ms. Laura.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jim, for a great webinar today. I do have a few housekeeping notes before we officially close out. As a reminder, everyone will receive a thank you email from IOFM in the next 2 business days with a link to access the on-demand webinar. Also, if you could please fill out the short evaluation form that will appear on the webinar console shortly. This will help us better serve your needs in future webinars. Thank you again to Mark and Jim for a great webinar today, and thank you to all of our attendees for taking the time out of your busy day to join us. This webinar was brought to you by IOFM and sponsored by PRGX. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.